Hello, Constant Readers. I'm Lauren, and I'm so excited to tell you all about the books that I read in the month of June. Make sure you follow me on Goodreads at Hello Constant Reader. Also follow me on Instagram at Hello Kitty Constant Reader. Also make sure that you leave a comment and let me know what books you're reading, or if you've read any of the books that I have and you have the same or a different opinion about one of those books. Please let me know what you're reading and what you think. So today I'm excited to talk about, I have 3 5-star books that I read in the month of June. 2 of the books that I read were 4 stars. The other 2 books were 3 stars, and I only had 1 book that was a 1-star book. So I had a really good month in June. I read a lot of exciting books that I was looking forward to. So the first book that I read was called The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, and this is a young adult fantasy with some romance in it. I wasn't really sure what to expect, and I'm not gonna lie, I had
really low expectations for this book.
But I was very happily surprised that I really enjoyed parts of the book a lot, enough to actually give it 3 stars. So this was one of my 3-star books for the month of June. The book was honestly kind of gruesome at parts and really dark and twisted for a young adult book. There's some really good dialogue in the book. Some characters really burn other characters in the book. I got attached to certain characters that ended up being
not such a good character.
I enjoy it when I kind of get manipulated into the book and I didn't see something coming. The story starts off with some strange dude walking into these girls' house and murdering their parents. And I'm thinking, this is a young adult novel. I was kind of taken aback. Yep, but don't worry, it gets worse. Then he pretty much adopts them because they find out that he was their mom's ex-husband and that one of their sisters is actually their half-sister, and that they're really that he's from this fairy world, and so is their sister is full fairy, but they're obviously all human. And so when the man takes them with him to fairy world, these human girls have to learn how to survive in this fairy world. I don't like how I'm also supposed to like these bad guy characters. I know that's something that is a big thing in young adult movies and TikToks and even books. I think it kind of maybe started with the Twilight series. I'm not really sure. I don't read a lot of young adult, so I don't really like how I'm kind of forced to try to like them. I really didn't think any of the boys in this novel were attractive, or I didn't really think the bad guy vibe really worked for them. They just seemed to be kind of pretentious, to be honest. So that's kind of why I didn't really like it. I mean, I just found part of this book unrealistic. It was hard to believe, or some parts were just flat out too dramatic for me. I did enjoy it. There were some parts where I was like, ooh, and I had a lot of reactions on my tabs. It was a library book, so I can't show you. But I enjoyed it other than those few points. The next book I read was called The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, and this is considered an adult fantasy novel. So I went into this book. I'd heard great things. It has really high reviews on Goodreads, so I thought, okay, it's going to be great. I'm pumped. I'm excited. Let's do this. And I almost didn't finish it, and the only reason I did is because I skimmed, so I don't even know if you would consider that completely reading, but I just skimmed it to finish it to see if it got any better or less confusing or just, I don't know. It was just an utter disappointment. I gave it 1 star. This is my one book that I gave 1 star to, and I was so disappointed. I think that's mainly why I gave it a 1 star, is because I was expecting so much, and it started out really good, and it was kind of different and unique, and then what's going on? I mean, the plot is just chaotic, unstructured, and really confusing. If you understand the plot and you want to try to explain it to me, do it in the comments below, but I just didn't understand what was going on. I didn't like the characters. I didn't really know anything much about them.
And I don't really care about them, sadly.
And also, again, what's going on? There's a bunch of doors, and this guy, and there's keys and bees and honey. I can't even explain to you what is going on in the story. That's how confusing it is, and I'm not going to try. The next book I read was a book that I've been told that I need to read for a long time, and I finally read it. It's called Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen, and it's an adult historical fiction with romance. So this book, I gave it 4.5 stars, pretty much a 5-star book. There was action, adventure, intrigue. There was mystery in the plot. I was wondering what was going to happen next. And of course, there was a great romance story as well. So pretty much the book's about the circus coming to town. And when a college student, he's about to graduate from vet school, and his parents end up dying in a terrible accident. And he decides he's going to run away, and he accidentally runs away with the circus. I mean, he wakes up on the train and they tell him this is pretty much the circus. It kind of just goes through all of these characters that he meets at the circus. And it just really shows you how evil people's intentions really are, because the main character, Jacob, it just has such a good heart. And honestly, his big, kind heart gets him in trouble because he really struggles. He really wants to do, I think, the right thing. And so that's what I liked about the story, is that it showed, how you have to fight for the things you believe in and the things that you think are right. And so I really liked that. He grows a lot in this story, the character does. Honestly, the setting is really fun with the unique circuses that they had, not too long ago, but it's still in the past. There's just a lot of scary people who really mean business in this book that just kind of gives you that suspense of what's going to happen next. Anyway, it was a great read. Definitely read it if you haven't, because I think you might really like it. The next book I read was Once Night Falls by Roland Marullo. And this is an adult historical fiction book as well. And the setting is World War II in Germany and Italy, talking about Hitler and Mussolini. The big quote from the book is, "Once night falls, the night belongs to the Italians." I gave this book 4 stars. I think the book definitely deserves 5 stars, but why I didn't give it 4 is because this isn't my favorite genre. It wasn't my favorite book. I'm probably not going to pick it up and just read it over and over again. So I gave it, let's say, like 4.5 stars is really probably what it deserves, because it was beautifully written. The characters are intriguing. The plot is exciting. There's just a lot of action, suspense, worry. You're on the edge of your seat. So it's a really good book. The characters are really brave. And so it's about this man, his name's Luca, and he's physically deformed from birth, so he can't be a soldier in the army and fight against Hitler and Mussolini. And so he decides to become like a secret agent for the war in order to protect Italians. And his lover is actually a Jew named Sarah, and they're hiding her and her mother. So Luca's mother and Sarah's mother are living in the same house when Germans move into the house next door to them, and they're afraid that they're going to get caught. So it kind of follows along all the cruel things that the soldiers did to just normal people. Luca's mother gets back at the German soldiers by being brave and doing something really crazy. So definitely check that book out if you want to find out what happens, because it's a really, really good read. Vicious by V.E. Schwab. And this is an adult fantasy book. Now, I think this was my favorite book that I read in June. It's about 2 college students who are just too smart for their own good. And they experiment with death and supernatural abilities. They eventually become enemies. But the big question, the kind of theme that is playing throughout the book, is who really is the villain? Is it Victor or is it Eli? So Victor wants to actually hunt down all of these people, the EOs, with extraordinary abilities, and he wants to kill them all because he thinks they're natural. However, Eli thinks that it's bad to kill all these people and it's not their fault that they are EOs. So they kind of have these disagreements between each other. Honestly, both are really ruthless and lack empathy. And it starts off when Eli has been in jail for a whole week because of Victor kind of ratted him out that he accidentally killed somebody. But in the meantime, Victor is out killing all these people. So Eli, it starts off when he escapes from prison, and his ultimate goal is to hunt down Victor and to kill him personally so that he will stop killing all these people. Very detailed, very exciting. I read this book probably in, I think, 2 days because I just loved the plot, the action. I loved the characters, how they started off on the same page, and now they're like complete opposite spectrums. So it's just really interesting overall. Definitely try that book out. It's the first book in a series called The Villains. So I'm hopefully going to read the second book here soon. The next book I read is called Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. It's another young adult science fiction fantasy book with romance. There's that romance again. Definitely, this is a young adult book, so it definitely reads for younger audiences. This is the second book in the series. The first one's called Cinder, and it's called The Lunar Chronicles. So the author's done something really interesting. She's taken old, like, princess stories or fairy tales, like Cinder is Cinderella, and then Scarlet is Little Red Riding Hood. And there's also a big bad wolf. Definitely the stories aren't necessarily, they're not similar in any way. This story takes place in a science fiction, futuristic kind of world. Well, one character, Cinder, is trying to escape prison so that they don't kill her because she got caught at the end of the last book. And then Scarlet is trying to find her grandmother because someone has kidnapped her and she's on her way trying to find her. And on the way, she finds the big bad wolf, are kind of the bad guys in the story. So the main characters were good. The plot was good. The only thing that I really didn't like was Prince. The prince wasn't really in the book a lot. His name's Prince Kai. I feel like he never really gets enough page time in the book. He just seems to be so cool. He really needs more page time, in my opinion. All right, and the next book I read was The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware, mystery thriller. And I've read a book by her before called The Woman in Cabin 10, and I just didn't really like it that much. So this was her second chance, and it was going really well. I was excited. I was like, yes, she's redeeming herself, except for the ending. We got to the ending, and it was so anticlimactic. I mean, there was this weird stuff happening in the house. So a babysitter comes to live with the 3 children of these really wealthy people, and they live in the middle of nowhere with a smart house. And so the smart house will do all this stuff. And eventually she starts hearing noises and creepy things happen at night. And so I was thinking, something really cool, like, was going to be the explanation for what was going on. The ending was just, there was so much buildup for just that. Boo! It was just a boring ending, in my opinion. There was a lot of good details. I liked the characters. Every character lies to you in this book, so just warning for that. And there are plot twists that make it really exciting, but then just the ending was just so bad that it took off a whole 2 stars for me because it made me so upset. So I gave this book 3 stars. It's still a really good read. Just be prepared the ending might not be what you're looking for. And the last book I read is Finders Keepers by Stephen King. This is the second book in the Bill Hodges trilogy. The first book was Mr. Mercedes. You might be more familiar with that title. So I just read the second book in the series. It's a mystery thriller. Now, I know it says Stephen King, but he doesn't necessarily just write horror. He will sometimes write more mystery detective style books. I have a really soft spot for the characters. I love Bill Hodges. He's like that cool old guy that you want to be friends with. And also Holly Gibney. She's just so cool too. Obviously, I gave this book 5 stars. The characters are just fabulous. And King does such a good job of storytelling and really building up each character's background. So you feel this connection to the characters. And it makes you just so much more invested. He is a master at storytelling. I think that's a big reason I can make it through any Stephen King book almost, because it's just so detailed and rich with a backstory. So this story is about a famous writer named Rothstein who is retired, but one man who loves his book, his name is Morris. He fell in love with his stories, but he was really mad at the way that he ended the series. And so he actually gets so mad, he goes to find the old man. He steals all his money. He steals all of the, rough drafts that he has of future books, and then he murders him. And you're like, wow, that's taken a step too far. So it's clear that the main character has some psychological issues, but he doesn't get caught for murder and stealing Rothenstein's things. After he hides it in a tree that night, he gets so drunk that he accidentally rapes a woman and he has to go to jail for a lifetime. So he's trying his best to get out on parole so that he can go back to his money and go back to finding out how the story that he loved so much that got ruined. He wants to know if there's anything that redeems the main character in Rothstein's book. So eventually he does get out of prison, But Morris finds out that a little boy named Pete has already found the books and the money. It's definitely a good mystery with a lot of good details. I don't think you could go wrong with this Stephen King book. So these are the books that I read in the month of June. If there's any books that you've read that you thought you enjoyed, definitely leave me a comment, or have you read anything different that I should put on my to be read list? Let me know down in the comments below. And thank you so much for listening, and I will see you guys next time.